If you've ever eaten an avocado and thought, hey, I should plant this seed and grow my own tree, you're not alone. Millions of people have done the exact same thing. You stick some toothpicks in the seed, suspend it over a glass of water, wait a few weeks for it to sprout, and then you've got yourself an avocado tree. Except here's the problem nobody tells you about. That seed-grown tree is almost certainly never going to give you edible avocados. Or if it does, you'll be waiting 10 to 15 years, and the fruit will probably be nothing like the avocado you planted it from. I've watched so many people spend years nurturing a seed-grown avocado only to end up disappointed. So in this video, I'm going to show you the only method that actually works for growing avocados that will produce real delicious fruit in a reasonable time frame. Plus, stick around to the end, because I'll show you how to turn your homegrown avocados into fresh avocado oil right in your kitchen. Let's get into it. Avocados are one of those plants that seem simple on the surface, but have a lot going on underneath. They're incredibly popular, incredibly delicious, and incredibly misunderstood when it comes to actually growing them at home. The good news is that once you understand what makes avocado trees tick and why the common seed-growing method fails, you can set yourself up for success and actually harvest your own avocados. Whether you're growing in the ground in a warm climate or in a container that you bring indoors for winter, the principles are the same. So let's start by understanding why that seed in the glass of water isn't going to cut it. Here's the thing about avocados that most people don't realize. They don't grow true from seed. What that means is when you plant a seed from a Hass avocado, the tree that grows is not going to be a Hass avocado tree. It's going to be a completely random genetic combination of its parent trees. Think about it like this. If you have two parents, you're not identical to either one of them. You're a unique mix. Same thing happens with avocado seeds. The seed contains genetics from both the tree it came from and whatever tree pollinated it, and you have no idea what combination you're going to get. The resulting tree might produce fruit that's watery and flavorless. It might produce fruit with a giant seed and almost no flesh. It might produce fruit that's actually decent, but you won't know for 10 to 15 years, because that's how long a seed-grown avocado takes to mature enough to fruit. Most commercial avocado growers discovered this the hard way over 100 years ago. That's why virtually every avocado tree sold today is grafted. Grafting means taking a cutting from a known, proven variety like Hass or Fuerte or Bacon and attaching it to a rootstock. The rootstock provides the root system, and the grafted portion, called the scion, provides the genetics for the fruit. When you buy a grafted avocado tree, you know exactly what kind of avocados you're going to get, and you'll get them in 3 to 5 years instead of 10 to 15. So if you want avocados that actually taste good in a time frame, that makes sense. Stop wasting seeds and start with a grafted tree. Before you buy an avocado tree, you need to think about your climate, because not all avocados are created equal when it comes to cold tolerance. Avocados originally come from Mexico and Central America, so they're expecting warm, subtropical to tropical conditions. But within the avocado world, there's actually a lot of variation. The varieties are generally grouped into 3 races: Mexican, Guatemalan, and West Indian. Mexican types are the most cold-hardy, tolerating temperatures down to about 20 to 24 degrees Fahrenheit once established. These include varieties like Mexicola and Stewart. Guatemalan types, which include Hass, are a bit more tender and generally handle temperatures down to about 26 to 30 degrees. West Indian types are the most tropical and really don't like anything below freezing. If you're in zones 9 through 11, you can probably grow avocados outdoors year-round with some variety selection. If you're in zone 8 or colder, you're going to be growing in a container and bringing your tree indoors for winter. That's absolutely doable, and I'll show you exactly how. When you're shopping for a tree, look for a variety suited to your climate. If you're in a borderline area, Go with a Mexican type for extra cold hardiness. If you're growing in a container, a naturally smaller dwarf variety like Little Cado or Wurtz makes a lot of sense because these stay more compact and are easier to manage indoors. Now let's talk about actually getting your tree. You want to buy a grafted avocado tree from a reputable nursery. Look for a tree that's at least 2 to 3 feet tall, with a healthy, well-developed root system. Avoid anything that looks stressed, has yellowing leaves, or seems root-bound with roots circling around the inside of the pot. When you examine the tree, you should be able to see the graft union, which is a slight bulge or scar in the lower trunk where the scion was attached to the rootstock. That graft union is your guarantee that this tree will produce the variety it claims to be. If you're buying online, stick with established nurseries that specialize in fruit trees. Read reviews, ask questions, and don't be afraid to pay a bit more for a quality tree. A healthy grafted tree might cost you $30 to $60, but that's a small investment compared to wasting years on a seed-grown tree that never produces anything worth eating. When you get your tree home, don't plant it immediately if you've just received it shipped. Let it acclimate for a few days in a shaded area, water it well, and let it recover from shipping stress before transplanting. If you're finding this helpful so far, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss more videos like this one. All right, let's get this tree planted. Whether you're planting in the ground or in a container, the soil setup is critical for avocados. These trees have sensitive root systems that absolutely cannot tolerate sitting in waterlogged soil. Root rot is the #1 killer of avocado trees, and it almost always comes down to poor drainage. If you're growing in a container, and honestly I recommend starting in a container even if you plan to eventually plant in the ground, choose a pot that's about twice the size of the nursery container your tree came in. So if it came in a 3-gallon pot, go with a 7 or 10-gallon container. Make sure it has excellent drainage holes in the bottom. For soil, you want something loose, well-draining, and rich in organic matter. I like to mix a high-quality potting soil with about 20 to 30% perlite or pumice to really improve drainage. Some people add coarse sand or small bark chips as well. The goal is a mix that holds some moisture but lets excess water drain away quickly. When you're planting, set the tree at the same depth it was growing in the nursery pot. Don't bury the graft union. That should stay above the soil line. Firm the soil gently around the roots, water it in well, and you're off to a good start. If you're planting directly in the ground, make sure you're in a spot with excellent drainage. Avocados will not survive in heavy clay soil that stays wet. If your soil is questionable, consider building a raised mound or berm to plant into. Watering avocados correctly is probably the trickiest part of growing them, and it's where most people go wrong. These trees want consistent moisture, but they absolutely cannot sit in soggy soil. The roots need oxygen, and waterlogged soil suffocates them. Here's how I approach it. Water deeply when the top 2 to 3 inches of soil feel dry. In a container during the growing season, that might be every 3 to 5 days, depending on your climate and pot size. In the ground, it might be once or twice a week. The key is to check the soil rather than watering on a fixed schedule. Stick your finger in a couple inches deep. If it feels dry, water thoroughly until you see water coming out the drainage holes. If it still feels moist, wait another day or 2. During winter, when growth slows down, you'll water much less frequently. Overwatering in winter is a very common mistake. Now let's talk about feeding. Avocados are moderate feeders that appreciate regular nutrition during the growing season. I like to use a balanced organic granular fertilizer applied every 6 to 8 weeks from spring through early fall. You can also use a citrus and avocado-specific fertilizer if you can find one. These often have the right ratio of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, plus micronutrients like zinc and iron that avocados appreciate. Don't fertilize in winter when the tree is dormant or semi-dormant. One thing to watch for is salt buildup in containers. Avocados are sensitive to salt, and fertilizer salts can accumulate in potted soil over time. Every few months, give the pot a deep flush by watering heavily and letting lots of water run through to wash out accumulated salts. If you're in an area with hard water or high salt content in your tap water, consider using filtered or rainwater. So when can you actually expect to pick avocados from your tree? With a grafted tree, you're looking at about 3 to 5 years to first fruit, sometimes sooner if conditions are ideal. That's a big improvement over the 10 to 15 years you'd wait with a seed-grown tree. As your tree grows, you'll want to do some light pruning to shape it and keep it manageable, especially if you're growing in a container. Avocados can get big, 20 to 40 feet or more in the ground, so container growing naturally limits their size. You can also pinch back the growing tips to encourage branching and a bushier shape. When your tree does start flowering, you might notice something interesting. Avocado flowers are what's called synchronously dichogamous, which is a fancy way of saying the male and female parts of the flower are active at different times. This is why having 2 different avocado varieties, one type A and one type B, can significantly improve pollination and fruit set. If you only have room for one tree, don't worry. Single trees can still produce fruit, just sometimes less reliably. You can also try hand pollinating by transferring pollen between flowers with a small brush. Let me walk you through some common problems you might encounter so you know how to handle them. If your avocado leaves are turning brown at the tips and edges, that's usually a sign of salt burn or inconsistent watering. Flush the soil well to remove salt buildup and make sure you're watering deeply and evenly. If the entire leaf is yellowing, especially older leaves, you might be overwatering, or the tree could be hungry for nitrogen. Check your soil moisture and consider a light fertilizer application if the soil is draining properly. If leaves are dropping rapidly, the tree is stressed. This could be from cold damage, transplant shock, or root problems. Evaluate recent changes in conditions and adjust accordingly. If your tree seems healthy but never flowers, it might just be too young. Give grafted trees at least 3 to 4 years before expecting blooms. Also, make sure your tree is getting enough light. Avocados want full sun, at least 6 hours of direct sunlight daily. Container trees brought indoors for winter often struggle with low light, so place them in your brightest window or consider supplemental grow lights. If you see black or dark brown spots on leaves, that could be a fungal issue, often related to too much moisture on the foliage. Improve air circulation and avoid overhead watering. If your tree's leaves look pale and washed out, it might need micronutrients, particularly iron or zinc. A foliar spray with chelated micronutrients can help green things up. And if you're in a marginal climate and your tree gets frost damage, don't panic. Wait until spring to assess the damage. Often, the tree will push new growth from below the damaged area. Prune out the dead wood once you can clearly see where the live tissue starts. Now for that bonus tip I promised. Once you're harvesting your own avocados, you're going to have more than you can eat sometimes, and that's a great problem to have. One fantastic way to use them is making your own avocado oil at home. Avocado oil is incredible for cooking, especially high-heat cooking, because it has a very high smoke point. Here's how to do it. Take ripe avocados, scoop out the flesh, and blend it into a smooth paste. Spread that paste onto a baking sheet lined with parchment and dry it in your oven at the lowest setting, around 170 degrees, for several hours until it's completely dried out and crumbly. Then take that dried avocado and blend it again in a high-powered blender until it turns into a paste. Keep blending and the oils will start to separate. Strain through cheesecloth, squeezing out every drop, and you've got fresh, homegrown avocado oil. It's a bit of a process, but the flavor is incredible. And there's something deeply satisfying about going from tree to oil in your own kitchen. So that's everything you need to know to actually grow avocados that will produce real fruit. Stop wasting time with seeds and water glasses and get yourself a grafted tree suited to your climate. Set it up with excellent drainage, water it carefully, feed it through the growing season, and in a few years you'll be harvesting your own avocados. If you found this helpful, make sure to hit subscribe and the notification bell so you don't miss the next video. Drop any questions in the comments below. I love hearing what you're growing and helping troubleshoot problems. Thanks for watching. Good luck in the garden, and keep on growing.